my background, I used to be a secondary school English teacher. I was a head of English, then head of English and maths in a few colleges, then head of teaching and learning. And I currently lead a DFE project where I'm the CPD lead. So very excited. Hopefully we can see my screen. Tom, if we can give us a thumbs up, champion. This morning, really just about sort of building authenticity and culture within an English and maths department, which, when you're sort of younger in your career or you're just starting out, some of these words, they don't seem important, words like authenticity or culture, but I think the more time that you spend in a department, and certainly when you're leading a department, these are the key pieces of vocabulary, because if you don't have these things, you've got a problem. So we're going to have a look at exactly what we need to do and the sort of things that we need to have. So just in the chat, please, and I'll sort of review these later on as we go. Just, what does great culture look like? I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time, and I've got me 10 minutes. I promised I would stick with me 10 minutes. So if you can, please, what does great culture look like to you? What are the sort of things that you see? So I just want you to be thinking about that, and then popping that in the chat. Now, there's a couple of definitions that we can look at as those things come in. And the first one is the sort of the academic definition. And I am contractually bound as a former English teacher to read whatever is on a PowerPoint slide. So the knowledge, values and attitudes and traditions that guide the behaviour of a group of people and allow them to solve the problems of their community. That's all very well, but what does that actually look like? Well, what that actually looks like, according to Herb Keller here, is culture is what happens when nobody's looking. So if you're not monitoring things and they're being done very well for the right reasons in the right way at the right time, you've got a great culture. It is that simple. I stole this quote, yes, from Herb Keller here, but you want to talk about culture. There's a gentleman called Darren Hankey at Hartlepool College of Further Education. One of my heroes in FE. I was fortunate to work with him, and he used to live by this comment and this quote, and I still now do. So again, it's all very well, but what does this actually look like in practice? So to have a culture of improvement, certainly as a leader, and as an aspirant leader as well, there are certain things that we need to have in place. Now, the first thing for me is the capacity, the time, and the will to be catching people in. So much quality activity, not necessarily TLA activity, but so much activity at times. It's catching people out. Let's go and sort of have a look around the department and see what's not quite there, see what's not happening, that should be happening, or see what's happening that shouldn't be. How often as a leader do you find the time to just go around your department, popping into lessons, speaking to students, talking to teachers, to find the great stuff that's happening and really buoy and really instill that confidence in your team? How often do we do that? And my answer would be that not enough. And what I would also say is that, we have so many one-to-ones, and we have appraisals and we have discussions with people. And a really simple way of making sure that that's a positive experience is literally doing it on the move. So if you can do your one-to-one and have a walk around as we do this, whether it's in department, whether it's around campus, your staff get that dopamine hit, which is a really basic thing. But what they start to do is they start to associate those one-to-ones, those little talks that you have, with positivity. So just having that, that opportunity to sort of get out and about and not doing a stuffy little cupboard, such as the one that I'm in today, is going to make you, a massive difference. And I think certainly as a leader, you've got to be seen. So if you want a good culture in your English and maths department, as a leader, you have to be seen. You have to be doing things like learning walks. You have to be speaking to staff. You have to be speaking to students. And I think where I often get that response of, we don't have enough time. If you don't think you've got enough time to get into lessons and to speak to your staff, there's something wrong with your processes and your systems, because you have to find the time to be doing those things. Now, big part certainly of building a good culture as a leader is, how often do we spend in meetings where it's basically just you talking for the first half an hour or 45 minutes? People don't want to be in those meetings. People switch off in those meetings. What we need to actually be doing instead is just all the stuff that you want to just communicate, all the stuff you want to broadcast. You get that in an email the day before, or you give that to people on a bit of paper for the first 10 minutes. You leave, and then you come back when they've seen it all, and you have a discussion. Have we got any questions? Too often, it's about broadcast, and it's not about dialogue, and it's not about communication. And as part of that, we have to give regular opportunities for feedback, whether that's one-to-one, whether it's 360 evaluation, whatever it is, we have to do it. So we have to give time. And I just wanted to, I went to some CPD that was led by the Army a few months ago, and they had a sort of really interesting thing on how leadership appraisals were done. Leadership appraisals in the army are done with a large part with the input of the team that leader leads. So as a head of English and maths, big part of your appraisal will be your English and maths teachers sort of reporting up on how you were doing. Would we be comfortable with that as the leaders of English and maths? Would we be comfortable, with our teachers having that part to play? And perhaps if not, again, maybe we need to look at something in terms of our culture. Now, I did, following being a head of English and maths, I was a head of teaching and learning as well. So I'm spending a little bit of time just going through, as a leader, really, for me, the things that we need to be doing is to be supporting staff. Just a reminder that, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. At the very end, you'll get some contact details from me as well. First thing, as I've already said, learning walks. Not to catch people out, to catch people in, to look where the good practice is. If you've got new members of staff, if you've got a member of staff who, maybe has some areas of development, which we all have, by the way, you need to know in your team who has those areas of development as strengths. If you've got a member of staff who needs a bit of support with feedback, you need to know who's great with feedback so you can collaborate and so you can put them together to support each other. Also, that work scrutiny gets a really bad rep. It's such a useful tool when it's done properly. As a head of English and maths, I did it on a Friday afternoon, English one week, maths the next, on a rota. I'd get a copy of everybody's books, and I'd sit with a member of my team and say, let's look for the great practice. And if it took 2 hours, I'd give that member of staff 2 hours back to start late or finish, to finish early or start late. Just give them the time back. The moderation and standardization, we know this, but again, how often is it happening? And I think it's such a big thing for me is that taking the time to collaborate, not just within your department, but also with people across the sector. Now, when I first came in from secondary school as a head of English and maths in a college, the first thing I did was spend probably the first 3 weeks ringing everybody, emailing everybody that I could in the region, in the area, and nationally, just where was doing the things that I wanted to do and how much input could I get from them around how I could develop and improve what I was doing. And we don't need to stop necessarily just at FE. There's great ideas in primary schools. There's great ideas in secondary. There's great ideas in sixth forms. There's great ideas in higher education. We can't just say, oh, well, it's secondary, so it doesn't matter. If it works, we have to take it on board. And we have to then adapt it, yes. But, we've got to take it on board. And I think probably the most frightening thing that you'll ever do as a leader are these last two. That 360 evaluation. Anonymous feedback from your staff on the things that you're doing well and the things that you might not be doing so well. That can be terrifying. What I would say is try and do it at the start of the week, because if you do it at the end of the week and your staff have had a bad week, you'll get the blowback from that. Also, don't look at it over a weekend, because you'll turn to alcohol. Don't do it. Do it at the start of the week. Get it done over a week, and then look at it on a Monday morning, because some of the things that the staff can say in a bit. Some justifiable, some maybe not, but you need that feedback. And exactly the same as one or two of you saying in the chat with our students as well. Now, again, building that culture, such basics, but do we sit and deliberately do this? How often do you thank your team as a leader? I'm ashamed to say that at times I would forget to do this. I had meetings to go to, I had loads of scrutiny activity to do, like, CPD to lead. Lots of students. I was teaching when I was a head of English and maths. How often do you just stop your staff and say, like, you've been great this week, or you did this piece of work and it was fantastic? Thank you. How often do we say, you've been great this week, have a flyer on a Friday? How often do you say, you've been working really well, start late on Tuesday, go and pick the kids up from school or whatever on the Wednesday? And when I've had those things done, when I've been a teacher and when I've been sort of junior manager, being able to go and pick my kids up is just on a Tuesday for absolutely no reason was the highlight of the half term at times. So I think, within that, we've also got to find these cultural champions. Now, these cultural champions, these are the people that really you need to be finding the people whose sort of culture and whose ideas align with yours, and you need to be looking and asking, what do they want? What do they need? Do they want to be managers? Do they want to be leaders? And what are the sort of things that you can put in place to support that? Really, for me, being a really effective head of English and maths, being a really effective English and maths teacher is about routine, consistently high routine. The standard that you tolerate is what your standard will become. So we consistently need to have high standards. And we talk about, collaboration, we talk about working together, and we talk about sort of the positivity and sort of enabling teachers. That's great, but we've also got to make sure that we have challenge as well with some of our teachers who perhaps are not quite where we want them to be. And we also need to make sure that we put ourselves out for challenge. It's not a case of, you're a great teacher and you become a leader and all the mistakes go away. You'll make plenty of them. So it's really important that you put yourself out and your staff feel comfortable and able to say, this hasn't quite worked, that you've done, or this isn't a great idea, or we don't agree with you. So just to finish up, really, I asked that question at the start of the session in terms of, what does a great culture look like? And I'm just going to spend just 10 seconds asking you to contemplate these questions, whether we're teacher, whether we're leader, whether we're aspirant leader, whatever we are. Do you give what you expect? What are your standards? Do you think they're high enough? Would you be happy if your children were being taught by you? Would you be happy if your children were being taught within your department? If yes, great, keep going. If not, why not, and fix it? So thank you very much. Again, if you've got any questions whatsoever, lob them in the chat. I'll be around for the remainder of the session, and I'll get through those. I do a fair bit of consultancy. I'm in a college today doing some. I'm at a conference on Friday. I'm in a college again tomorrow, working nationally. If you'd be interested in getting me in to speak about curriculum, assessment, individualisation, any challenges that you might have, I promise you I've seen them all. You can give us a shout on the email there, on the Twitter, and we can also just use that QR code, pass on your details, and I'll be in touch. But thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a sensational rest of the year. Hope to see you all soon. And thanks from the folks at Warwick for putting this event